I have a love and appreciation for the Tomb Raider series. Granted, at the point of making this video, I have not played all of the games, and in all honesty, I haven't beaten a single one of the original core design made games. I know this might sound odd, but those Tomb Raider games were not the first ones that I beat. I grew up with a PS1, and even owned the first game, but its rather obtuse design at times was something that prevented me from really getting into it as a kid. I did enjoy the figuring out type of design, but even Tomb Raider can really throw you for a loop when it comes to some of that design found on the retro console. That all being said, I know that it was mostly an issue with me rather than the game itself. I played some of it and loved the adventure, exploring, and especially Lara herself. It wasn't until years later that I would actually beat a Tomb Raider title. The PS2 generation got me interested in some really awesome action-adventure titles, ones that had both quality combat and jumping. The Prince of Persia games ranked as some of the best. It makes me miss the days where Ubisoft would make more linear games. They used to be great at it. This eventually led to me eyeing Tomb Raider Legend. Lara was getting a new set of games, and once I laid my eyes on it, I knew that I wanted to buy it and play it right then and there. Legend was my very first Tomb Raider experience that I played from start to finish, and I loved it. Sure, it might be on the shorter side, but that just meant that there was more time to replay it every weekend, weeks in a row. It was this game that made me a fan of the series and this character. For me, it was something special. I had a blast playing through Tomb Raider Legend. If you want something that throws you into a treasure hunting action adventure, Legend manages to completely absorb the player with fun gameplay from jumping, puzzle solving, and shooting, with a story that got me further invested with Lara as a character and this world. The globetrotting is another huge plus, not just for the story, because just like a good spy flick or adventure film, it does hit a bunch of different locations to keep the hunt varied and consistently enjoyable. But this also works well for the gameplay and the locations that you will be exploring. These can change from forest-like locations, military bases, snowy mountains, and a lot more. I really like the mixture of treasure hunting and the spy-like experience. It felt like the developers were fans of Hollywood productions in this area, like say James Bond and Indiana Jones, while being able to then provide it in another medium very well with Legend. As another plus, Legend moves. The game has some really good pacing. You can probably complete the game in just a few hours, especially once you know what you're doing. It's a game that I wish was longer, but only because of how enjoyable the adventure is. It's well paced, very little fat, and something that I found very easy to return to because of the combination of the quality here and its shorter length. When it comes to what you'll be doing, the big majority of it here is the platforming, shooting, and puzzle solving. The jumping, swinging, shimmying, and all other movements generally feel good. There are a few times where I wish I could be a bit more precise than what the game allows me to with some of my jumps, but outside of the mild jank that might pop up here and there, I love exploring these environments and trying to figure out how to traverse ahead as well. Oftentimes there is an element of urgency thrown into the platforming, with you needing to avoid falling platforms, move quickly to the next spot, and of course dodging traps. Some of these might even come down to just timing, but there are other times where they mix this in with the puzzle solving that you'll also be doing. For example, you might need to dodge some fire, but the base jump for Lara does not propel you far enough to not get hit. You need to then use a combination of some of your gadgets and an object to allow you to make it past those jumps without taking damage. Legend does a good job of providing a thrilling first level. The game starts and does not waste the player's time. The The cutscene that starts the game allows for some mystery to build, and then we get to dip our toe with different gameplay elements that Lara and the player will be doing. There's plenty of jumping with some simple puzzles where you can manipulate the environment to complete, and then some fun shooting. Legend does feature plenty of puzzles, and I would say that many of these are on the more simpler side of things, and yet still fun to do. There were maybe a few that took me a little bit to complete. Combat-wise, I really like the system at play here. It's mostly all shooting, and instead of a cover system, this uses a lock-on system. This means that the combat has you consistently on the move. You have various jumps and rolls that you can use as you pop around the arenas to dodge enemy fire and get a few shots off. The mobility and movement options also aid you in other ways. You can bounce off an enemy and then do a slow-mo flip of sorts that is both stylish and can be a way to quickly dispatch more than one foe. The rolls can also be used to knock down an enemy to give you some breathing room. You have a grappling hook, and while it helps you pull objects and allows for some swinging positions for the platforming, this can also be used to pull an enemy too. Sometimes you might have some more vertical combat, and as a result you can pull an enemy off of a roof or even into a trap. The cool plus to this is that the game never tells the player this is an option. It's more of a fun experimentation type of thing. Now there are some other gameplay moments and sequences, like parts where Lara needs to then run away from a falling set of platforms, or even a foe chasing her. These are fun and short bursts of excitement. There are some bike sequences, and while I generally enjoyed them, I do think that some more variety could have been incorporated, because by the time that you get to the second one, they can go on for just a bit too long. Or more variety in the set piece action or something else to really keep these things from feeling a little tedious. Bosses can be a bit of a mixed bag as well. I would generally say that most of them are fine, with some good elements here and there. I found many of these fights could have benefited from being more involved or having an additional phase or two to defeat them. In many cases, once you figure out how to take them out, this was pretty much all the boss had to offer. Again, they aren't bad, but definitely an area that could be improved upon. Story-wise, I really like this one. You have a more personal journey here for Lara, as this deals with her mother and even some parts of her father's legacy. Lara is a character you can easily get behind. She is smart, playful, and loves the chase. There are moments where she gets a bit more emotional when it deals with her friends and her parents, and seeing her gentler side as well also adds to this too, along with moments seen towards the end of the game where she is much more brutal when it comes to her actions. There's some playful humor and chemistry with her team. Again, how this game is done and especially written is something that I don't think many modern writers could do today. Here we have a strong character who happens to be a woman, and she is not insufferable as well, with no girl boss type of stuff. Her entire team is men, and none of them feel like betas. They all try to help and make for a good team. Plus, Lara is not afraid to dress nor present more of her feminine side that you would honestly expect from this character. It was refreshing playing this in a sea of modern games that don't seem to understand how to write women now. Just like the gameplay, the story is good too. Tomb Raider Legend is a game that I love, with it having some rough and janky-like elements in it as well, or even including stuff like QuickTime events that honestly don't really fit in the game. Now sure, I wished it was more ironed out and refined in some ways, but there is so much good here, and as a game that was trying to bring Lara back after the controversial prior game, the game made a great effort and I think succeeded. This was my first Tomb Raider game that I completed, and it is often the version of Lara that I think of when I first think of this character. I have respect for the originals. I even enjoyed the Survivor trilogy as well. But for me, Legend is the game that was my entry point and made me a fan of all of these games, and especially the character. Returning back to this years later, it retains what I remembered about it being so good, and even more so what I miss about games like this too. We could use some more good linear single-player action-adventure titles today. I love Legend and highly recommend it. Have you played Legend? What were your thoughts of it? What was your first first Tomb Raider title? Let me know all of this in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.